Today we're talking about networking, and the overall arching topic is really operating systems. And what we know about most operating systems nowadays is they provide a pretty extensive access to networking and the internet, since that's pretty much what's going on in computers right now. First, we need a definition of what a network is. So a network is a communication system that enables computers to share resources. That's basically it. You're trying to share resources. There's really no other reason you would need a network. How many connections to the internet do you have maybe at your house? The answer is, there's only one. And so all the computers in your wireless network, perhaps at home, or your network at home, need to share that same line. So a network operating system allows you to share that stuff. Equipment like printers, plotters, things like that. Software you can share. Data. So there's the physical network. And this consists of all the computers and equipment joined together by some kind of communication cable. The one we're most used to is an Ethernet cable, but I've seen other things used, and we'll talk about some of the different technologies that are used there. What's amazing about networks nowadays is they can link users not just in the same room or the same office building or school perhaps, but you can link up with other computers anywhere in the world. And that's what makes the internet so powerful, is that your computer is basically your access to pretty much all the other computers on any server that's out there on the internet. Here's another definition we need to have in our head. One's called a workstation, or if you're a kind of a Linux person, this is called a host. But what is a workstation? It has its own CPU, it has its own central processing in it, and it can be used standalone or as a network computer to run software applications. Right now we're using a browser to see the presentation, and everybody has their own copy of the browser. So you can use it standalone, you can use it network with other computers on the network, and go from there. Now there's two types of networking models. One is called peer-to-peer, and the other is called client-server. In a peer-to-peer network model, all the computers on the network have to share the network resources. There's no one computer that's in charge. That's why they call it a peer. Peer is someone at your same level. So like in this classroom, a peer is just another student in the class. You're all at the same level. Are you my peer? No, you're not the teacher. But if I was hanging around with other teachers, they'd be my peer. So peer-to-peer means all the computers have the same amount of rights to the resources as any other computer. Now in a client-server model, there's a server that administers the network resources. When you came into this classroom and you logged in, there's a single sign-on server over the district that you have to talk to in order to get access to the network. When it comes to login, that's more of a client-server networking model. So if you're at home and you're trying to set up a network, this is typically how you set it up. Most home networks are peer-to-peer networks. It's real easy to set up generally. Workstations communicate with each other using their operating system. So instead of Windows XP, perhaps you're using Windows 8 or even Windows 10. Or maybe you have a Mac at home, who knows. But part of the operating system provides services so that you can talk to other computers on your network. I tried to set up a server at my house and run it like a corporate network, but that didn't really work out so well. There's so much overhead to do that, it's not worth the effort. So when you're setting up a home network, peer-to-peer is probably the easiest way to go. And it satisfies most of the needs anyway. So if you were going to take a picture of the peer-to-peer model, it would look something like this. Each computer is connected to all the other computers in the network somehow, and they all share resources. Like at my house, I have one PC that has the printer on it. And my wife likes to print on my printer because we don't want to have to get a printer for every computer. That's how it used to be when I first programmed. Every programmer had a computer and a printer. But we didn't use the printers that often. And so it was a big waste of money to get a printer, until eventually they figured out, well, let's just have one printer and have all the computers share the printer. And that's what we do in here. We have a printer here in the back. Everyone can write to the printer, send print jobs to it. We don't need to have a printer on every computer. That would be wasteful. A peer-to-peer network allows you to do that. Now, a client-server system is not relying on the standalone operating system. Basically, we're relying on a Windows server that provides full-scale network resource management. It shares the ability to log on, the ability to get the internet, the ability to print, the ability to check your grades when you go into Student View. All of those things are driven by servers over at the district office. Now, I've gone hunting around for some of these servers, and I finally figured out that some of the servers don't actually exist. Right now, all the servers that the district wants are being virtualized, which means there's not a single physical server that just runs Synergy. That's the way, again, you had to do it. Now they have one machine that, even though it's physically one server, it behaves like it's 6 or 7. It might be the grade report server and the attendance server and the student view server. 3 different servers, but they're all on the same machine. Very strange. So here's another definition. A client is a computer that accesses resources on another computer through a network. That's pretty broad. If you're looking at the internet, your machine is the client, and whatever file server or web server is sending you the information would be considered the server part. So that's the client-server model. And that's pretty much what drives corporate networks, school-based networks, and the internet itself. Another definition of the server. A server is a single computer that provides extensive multi-user access to network resources. Here are the different types of servers, and sometimes a server can have multiple roles. For example, a file server. When we go out to the shared drive and we grab stuff from there, or we turn in some of our work to the H drive, what you're doing is you're interacting with a file server. And so we have a file server somewhere out at the district office, or I think it's actually here on site. And that's where we're storing all our information. Any work you do in my class and you need to turn it in goes out to that file server. There's also a print server. Here at school, the print server and the file server are the same server. So here's a server that has 2 roles. Next we have the web server. Now the web server is over at the district office. I used to be the webmaster for the school, and I would have to upload new changes to the website doing it that way. A database server. When teachers put in grades or take attendance in a class, all that has to be recorded somewhere, and that goes out to the Synergy database server. But Windows has a database where we put all our information in, and that's where, when it comes time to calculate grade, the teachers don't have to do it by hand anymore. They just put their grade of the individual assignments in for the class, and then it does all the calculations, tells what the grade is. Email server. Well, the district uses something called Outlook. So Outlook is a Microsoft product. You probably use something like Gmail or Yahoo or any of the other email servers. The last one here, application servers, is a little bit strange. Say you have machines that aren't that powerful. You can actually run applications across the network, and each user gets their own session on the server, and then it acts more like an application server. So you buy the application once, but lots of people can use it at the same time. Okay, so what are the benefits of using a server? Members can share files, printers are shared, access to resources centrally controlled. Members can share software. The one I like the best is backups are centrally controlled. Say you lose your file from last week and you want to go back and get it. If you had it stored on your individual machine, there'd really be no way to restore that. But since we store all our data in our to-grade folder in our H drives, if you want to get a backup of that, you can go back to last week's backup and grab that file that got corrupted. So that's a really strong reason why having a server is a good idea. Is one exclusive to the other? Is it peer-to-peer? Does it require everything has to be peer-to-peer? Client server, everything has to be client server? No, you're always mixing network models all the time. Print server is peer-to-peer. All right, that's it on networking, just general, that's the introduction.